Discover 5 spine-chilling, sinister true stories from this haunted summer you won't believe. The summer heat in Maplewood is suffocating, wrapping the quaint little town in a thick, unnerving hush. Claire, a dedicated nurse, trudges home after another grueling 12-hour shift, her mind clouded with the echoes of sorrowful murmurs from the hospital. But nothing could prepare her for the bizarre turns her life would soon take. As she opens her creaking front door, the familiar scent of her mom's baked cookies is cut short by an icy shiver that pricks at her instincts. She glances at her yard, where colorful garden gnomes, her little garden warriors, have suddenly vanished. What is happening in this town? She whispers, fear swelling in her throat. The townspeople are bubbling over with whispers. Bizarre stories float like pesky gnats through the close-knit community. Laughter turns hushed as she passes, the eyes of her neighbors darting, as if she is a ghost drifting through their lives. First the gnomes, then eerie noises, shuffling footsteps outside her window at night, light tapping on glass, haunting mutters sneaking in through slightly open windows. Each knock of discovery echoes louder in her mind, sending icy fingers creeping down her spine. She finally decides to dive deeper when shadowy figures flitter past her curtains, holding her hostage in her own home. Tom, her neighbor with a harmless smile, becomes her fixation while the others avoid meeting her gaze. The sweet, mundane life she cherishes is crumbling, unraveling with threads of fear and desperation tight enough to snap. Is he really who he pretends to be? She wonders as dread unfurls around her. Each trip to the market feels like stumbling through a minefield, a mess of hushed tones discussing Tom's past like dark clouds looming overhead. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Huddled on the porch one evening, Claire confronts Tom, desperation balling her fists. His charm wraps around her like a sticky web, but then a crack in his mask. The icy glint of malice sweeps across his face. You shouldn't stir things up, he murmurs, a predator hiding in plain sight. Her heart races, the air thick with foreboding. Could he be connected to the chilling folklore that dances and whispers among parents? A young girl went missing years ago. The room around her grows colder as she senses the stake she has placed her family on, and like a phantom whispering warnings, each laugh from Tom's yard feels more sinister than before. As the hunting season draws near, terror tightens its grip on Claire's whirling mind. Her family has become the focal point of this strange malevolence, where every shadow feels like a threat and unspoken dangers loom at every corner. Then one night, under a blanket of darkness, she catches a whiff of something sweet, alluring, calling her towards Tom's house, where laughter spills over like a liquid nightmare. Fearing for her family, with frantic heartbeats echoing in her ears, she feels the icy touch of doubt grip her. Is Tom masking a darkness that is more monstrous than her wildest imagination? Just as the breeze shifts and a presence lurks behind her, Claire huddles closer, the curtains of safety thinning, with choices looming to seal or shatter her fate forever. Claire's heart pounded like a drum in the empty silence of her home. She slid her fingers across the edge of the porch, grounding herself in the wood that had once felt so warm and inviting. But now, every creak sounded like a warning cry. A chill coursed through her spine as the sweet scent intensified, drowning out the remnants of her mother's cookies. She swallowed hard, memories of the missing girl clawing at her mind, tangling with thoughts of the laughter that drifted from Tom's yard. Stay away, she hissed, but the words felt utterly weak, almost as if the dark air around her held the power to swallow them whole. She peered into his yard, shadows dancing grotesquely, shifting shapes that slithered across her vision. A whisper of wind teased the corners of her sanity, lifting the hairs on the back of her neck. The stories of Maplewood swirled. They told of homes turned to prisons, of innocent neighbors hiding malevolence under the shine of smiles. Against her instinct, Claire stepped further into the night, her footfalls hesitant but drawn by a magnetic pull. A distant giggle pierced the darkness, high-pitched, like glass shattering. She pressed her hands against her chest, feeling the frantic rhythm of her heartbeat. Was it the laughter of children? What children? The ones who had vanished and were never found. Claire! A voice sliced through the shadows, and she jumped. Tom stood in the flashing glow of his porch light, his smile wide, too wide. Come join us. We're having a little gathering. Inviting, yet laden with something sinister, something that tasted bitter on her tongue. No, she started, but he was walking toward her now, his movement deliberate, calculated. The flickering light caught something in his eyes, a glimmer that sent her stomach twisting into knots. There was no trace of the warm neighbor she thought she had known. Her instinct screamed to run. Have you seen my gnomes? He held her gaze, the question dripping with mock innocence. They like to play hide and seek, you know. Such fun, until someone really gets lost. The airy flow of his words dripped with mockery yet felt like a veiled threat. With a shiver crawling along her skin, she turned her back to him, sprinting toward the door, desperation lending her wings. She bounded inside, slamming the door, as she breathed raggedly, her hands trembling violently. What have I done? Claire leaned against the old wooden door, heart racing. Outside, the laughter faded, swallowed by the night. But the feeling of being watched remained, heavier than before. With a flickering light bulb in the hallway casting eerie shadows, she made her way to the living room. Grabbing her phone, Claire sent a quick text to her sister. Something's wrong with Tom. But as she hit send, a shatter of glass startled her. Her eyes darted to the window. Something moved. Something dark and swift darted beyond the glass, rendering her frozen in place. Tom? She whispered, though she knew in her bones he wouldn't answer. The house responded instead. Creaks echoed through the stillness, like ghostly whispers creeping from the corners. And then, a sinister knock at the door. 1, 2, 3. Each pulse resonated in her chest, loud and terrifying. Claire pressed her back against the wall, clutching her phone, her breath hitching. Her gaze was locked on the door. Should she open it? Or would that seal her fate? Just then, her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. The unexpected noise ignited her anxiety, and she peered at the screen. It was a message from her sister. Get out of the house. Now! But could she? Could she really step back into that night? The soft tapping resumed, this time delicate, almost playful. Claire gasped, a glimmer of hope thrown into despair. It wasn't he in her head, was it? Her feet moved of their own accord, inching towards the door, heart racing, trembling hands slowly reaching for the knob. But what awaited her beyond that door? As Claire's fingers brushed the cold metal of the doorknob, her mind raced through worst-case scenarios. She could almost feel the sweat trickling down her back, the whisper of danger trailing close behind. The knocking echoed louder, growing more insistent, as if the night itself were alive, urging her to open the door just to see what had come. Think, Claire! She muttered to herself. But her thoughts were muddled. What if it was Tom? What if it wasn't he? She pulled her hand away, every muscle screaming for her to flee. Just as she turned, the silence was sliced open, a voice, soft and sinister. Claire, are you there? It was a childish voice. High, sweet, and utterly wrong. Frozen, Claire's heart dropped. Which child? The ones who had vanished years ago? Or a new victim? Claire, let us play just a little game, it sang. A chill spread across her skin as her mind grasped at desperate thoughts. Get away from me. she shouted, though dread coiled around her throat, choking her pleas. This wasn't a game. This was survival. She darted into the kitchen, fumbling to find something, anything. A knife? A phone? She scooped the nearest kitchen knife, the weight of it comforting yet terrifying. The seconds felt searing as the tapping resumed, this time paired with childlike giggles that pulled at her sanity. "Open the door, Claire! I want to see you!" A scream bubbled in her throat, but she swallowed it down, pressing her back against the counter, breath quickening. An idea sparked a moment of clarity. She needed a plan. The window! With a quick glance at the door, she turned and sprinted toward the living room window, escaping the giggles floating behind her. Her heart raced, thumping in her ears like an alarm bell. She flung the curtains to the side and peered at the darkness outside. A flash of white caught her eye, a figure darting among the trees. Was it real? Or was her mind playing tricks? Terror gnawed at her stomach. Just shadows? Or was this the face of her nightmares? Behind her, the knocking grew louder, almost frantic, as if whatever was on the other side had lost its patience. "Tom? Are you there?" she called out, though the word felt heavy and hollow. No response. Only the laughter danced through the air, wrapping around her like a suffocating fog. Sudden movement flared from the dark shadow at the edge of the yard. A glimpse of a familiar face, one that made her blood run cold. It was Jenny, the girl who had gone missing. Claire's breath hitched. "Jenny? Is that you?" But the child only smiled, her teeth unnaturally sharp as if fashioned for the hunt, and gestured for Claire to come outside. "Join us, Claire. It's safe here, especially if you play." Desperation surged through her. She backed away from the window, shaking her head violently, clutching the knife tighter. Screams rose in her throat, a panic that ignited the air. "Leave me alone!" Claire shouted, her voice trembling. At that moment, the front door thundered open. The darkness rushed inside, and figures like shadows, 4 of them, stepped into her home. Their heads tilted unnaturally, eyes alight with a hunger that chilled her to the bone. And then Claire understood. It wasn't Tom who was playing games. It was the children, the lost ones, forever trapped in a twisted version of childhood fun. "Let us play, Claire," they chimed, voices overlapping, a cacophony of haunted glee. She turned and ran. But where could she hide? The house was a maze, and she could feel them drawing closer, laughter echoing, shadows closing in. The knife felt heavy in her grasp. With every step, each breath echoed the frantic pulse of her heart. But where would she find safety? Was there anywhere to run? As she stumbled toward the staircase, the sound of shuffling feet grew louder behind her. It was almost time for their game to begin. What would victory look like in this twisted reality? And for whom would the game end? Claire. They laughed, their voices merging into one. With no time left to think, Claire bolted toward the attic, praying it'd offer a refuge. But what awaited her as she ascended the rickety stairs? "Open the door, Claire. We're counting." The number climbed as she reached the top. What would happen if they reached 10? As Claire reached the top of the attic stairs, she shoved the heavy door closed behind her, heart pounding. It creaked ominously, as if protesting her frantic movements. The sound of childlike counting 1, 2 filtered through, echoing in the cramped, dark space. Her pulse quickened, pounding like a war drum. Claire glanced around, searching for a place to hide. The attic was cluttered with old boxes, forgotten toys, and dusty furniture covered in white sheets that resembled ghostly figures in the dim light. There was no time to think, only to act. 3, 4, the counting continued, each number dripping with sinister anticipation. Then it hit her, a small nook beside the old trunk. It was a tight fit, but it would have to do. She ducked down, clutching the knife to her chest, her breath shallow and rapid. The attic was silent except for her heart in her ears, pounding louder with each moment. 5. The sound of icy laughter drifted through the stillness. "Ready or not, here we come," they chorused, their voices creeping closer. Claire squeezed her eyes shut, willing herself to melt into the shadows, praying they wouldn't find her. In the suffocating darkness, memories swelled, horrific headlines blaring about missing children, parents searching desperately, never knowing what had happened. Claire's hand trembled. This was worse than she had imagined. It wasn't just a game for them. It was a hunt. "Where is she?" A whisper floated in the air, so close it sent ice sliding down her spine. "I can hear her. I can feel her." Claire's breath caught in her throat. She fought the urge to scream, clamping a hand over her mouth. The counting echoed behind her, growing louder, more confident. 6, 7. An idea jolted her. If she could get to the window, maybe she could escape. But would they let her leave? 8. Their giggles returned, light and haunting, filling the attic. They seemed to be playing with her, the thrill of the hunt weighing heavily in the air. Suddenly, something bumped against the trunk near her hiding spot, and Claire jumped, knife clattering against the wood. The laughter faded, replaced by an eerie silence. "Did you hear that?" "Yeah, she's here." Desperation clawed at her insides. She couldn't stay. She had to make a run for it. Quietly, she edged towards the window on the far side of the attic, shifting boxes in her way, each creak and crack sounding like thunder in her ears. The window's cracked glass glinted in the dim light. She could escape if she could just pry it open. As she reached it and started to lift the window, sudden movement flickered behind her. She froze. "Why are you hiding, Claire?" "We just want to play." The voices cascaded around her as the children stepped closer, their faces illuminated by the faintest glimmer of moonlight. Once innocent gazes twisted into malice, eyes glinted with a hunger that set her heart racing. With a determined grunt, Claire yanked the window open, the hinges screeching as she slid halfway out. "Claire!" they shrieked, voices rising to a cacophony of panic and excitement. With one last glance back, she saw them converge, their shadows pulling together, blocking the light. Just as she was about to leap, a hand grabbed her ankle, yanked her back. "Come play with us." The world spun as she fell backward, landing hard on the attic floor. The knife clattered from her hand, lost in the chaos, and then darkness swallowed her. Was this truly the end, or was there a chance to escape? "Catch her!" The last echoes of their childish glee persisted as she faded into the black. What would they do to her now? The darkness felt thick and suffocating. Claire's instinct kicked in. Panic flared in her chest, sharp and demanding. She tried to reclaim her breath, clenching the floorboards with her fingers as the world around her spun. Sprawled on the attic floor, her mind raced with visions of the children, who had been counting hunters eager for their prey. "Where is she?" a voice whispered, echoing like a taunt in the abyss. It slithered through her, awakening every primal fear. "Definitely not just a game. Can't you smell her fear?" Another voice chimed in, a giggly sing-song that made Claire's skin crawl. They were circling her like vultures, and she could feel their presence hovering, waiting. There was no escape when she couldn't even see them. All she had was the sensation of cool air rushing in through the window she had almost managed to slip through, the only reminder of freedom. "Get up, Claire. We want to show you something." They giggled again, voices lilting in that unnerving way that put her on the edge of violence. Claire's heart thundered as she slowly rose, pressing her back against the wall, trying to become one with the shadows. She glanced around for anything, any means of defense. She needed that knife. "Where is it?" she thought frantically, but the attic loomed large and impossible, filled with the unseen. "Let us play hide and seek again." "But first," the voice purred, dripping with dark amusement, "we need to make it even more fun." The air felt electric as a whisper of wind snaked through the attic, Drew taut with the impossibility of her predicament. Suddenly, there came a thud of box tipping over in the distance. The laughter swelled, their eyes alight with excitement. Shoo! We heard something. Fueled by desperation, Claire darted across the attic, skirting around the trunks and boxes, searching. She pushed through the clutter, praying the knife hadn't rolled too far. 3 for the counting resumed, and each number reverberated through her bones. No! You can't! She found herself screaming out loud, the words fueled by pure adrenaline. She hadn't realized how close they were until she could see their feet, all ragged as shoes, and scuffed boots blocking her way. 5 with surprising agility, she leaped over a stack of boxes, her heart racing, but the soft giggles cascaded behind her like twinkling bells. Suddenly, she heard them whispering amongst themselves. Where did she go? She was here a moment ago. A flicker of hope ignited within her. Maybe she could confuse them, outwit them her full-grown will against their childish games. Taking a hitched breath, she ducked behind the old chest once more, trying to quiet the racing of her heart, but the attic was alive. The old boards creaked underfoot, echoing the weight of her fear. She can't hide forever, an ominous voice echoed, now unsettlingly close. Claire bit her lip, forcing herself to remain still, staying small, blending into the shadows. When a hand suddenly shot out and seized her collarbone, she screamed. A hot pang of pain shot through her as she was yanked from her hiding place. They loomed over her, their faces twisted in eager anticipation, eyes wide with an insatiable hunger. What is she doing? One of the children shrieked with faux innocence. You need to join the game. You need to play. With renewed panic, Claire struggled, kicking and trying to break free. The grip tightened, and she knew it was the end if they pulled her deeper into their web. But in the chaos, a beam of moonlight broke through a crack in the attic roof, casting their twisted forms in relief. Claire squinted, and in that moment, she noticed something glinting on the floor beneath the boxes, a sliver of silver, her knife, gleaming like a beacon. Let me go! She screamed, and with a surge of adrenaline, swung her arm in a fury, seeking salvation. The laughter grew deafening, but she lunged for the knife. Everything hinged on that moment. Would it end in blood? Would it free her? Whatever the answer, she had no time to think. Just as her fingers grasped the handle, a scream rang out, not hers, but from one of the children. The sound shattered the tension, sending a shiver through the air. Run! The voice shrieked as the attic rumbled, the very boards beneath them trembling. But freedom was just the other side of the dark, and before she could step toward it, she heard it again, a soft whisper clawing through the silence, an echo that chilled her blood. Find her quick, or she'll disappear. What did they mean? Where would she go if they caught her? The attic felt smaller, more oppressive, as if time was running out. What awaited her if she failed to escape the clutches of the shadows that moved with a will of their own? The knife felt cold in Clara's hand as she gripped it tightly, blood pounding in her ears. Panic surged, driving her instincts. She pivoted away from the children, her breath coming in sharp gasps. The shadowy figures quivered, excitement flickering in their eyes as they watched her, their giggles echoing like a ghostly chorus. She couldn't stay here. With a surge of determination, she bolted towards the window. The air outside promised freedom, but the children were closing in, their laughter morphing into a sinister melody that chilled her to the core. Catch her! She is trying to escape! One of them yelled, and that was all it took. They surged forward, their movements fast and unnaturally agile. She could almost feel the heat of their breath against her back as she lunged for the window. Just as she reached it, something snagged her ankle, pulling her down hard. The room spun, and Claire found herself face to face with the floor. She fumbled for the knife, but it slipped away, clattering to the side. No! The word tore from her throat as she felt their fingers grasping at her. They were everywhere, yanking, pulling, dragging her back. Claire kicked and thrashed, her heart hammering in her chest. Then she spotted it under the gnarled leg of an old chair, her knife shining, taunting her. She twisted, thrusting an arm out to grasp it, feeling the sharp edges biting into her palm. With renewed desperation, Claire swung the knife wildly, desperation fueling her strikes. A small child stumbled back, clutching their arm, surprise flitting across their face. "You hurt her!" Another shrieked, their eyes widening in disbelief. "Get away from me!" she screamed, scrambling to her feet, knife held high. With every muscle strained, she thrust forward into the pack, pushing through the tangled mass of limbs. She felt their breath, hot and quick, brushing against her skin, their giggly voices blending into an agonizing chorus. "Don't run, Claire! We want to play forever." But the thrill of their madness only drove her faster. Claire dashed toward the small staircase leading down. She could feel the ancient wood underfoot, the precariousness of every step as she raced down. She didn't dare look back, but she could hear the children pounding behind her, their joy a cacophony of terror. At the bottom, she flung open the door leading out of the attic, the gust of cold air hitting her like a wave. She stumbled forward into a dim hallway, shadows pooling in the corners. For an instant, silence enveloped her, thick and pregnant with tension, but it only made the feeling of being hunted more acute. Claire's eyes darted from side to side, searching for a place to hide. The voices were closer now, bubbling with laughter, hungry and searching. She pressed her back against a wall, hoping to blend into the darkness, breaths coming in frantic bursts. Then she heard it again. That whisper, soft as silk, slithering through the silence. Yes, here find her. Claire's heart sank. They were getting smarter, the game more twisted. Suddenly, the door behind her creaked open, a silhouette standing in the threshold, blocking the faint light. She couldn't make out who or what it was, but dread rolled over her like a wave. "Claire," the voice rasped, familiar yet utterly wrong. "Let us play." Everyone else waiting, the knife trembled in her hand. Her last shred of hope dwindled as she realized she couldn't run anymore. Not from this. Not from them. Was this the end? Or could she summon the courage to fight back? As the figure stepped forward, the jagged knife glinted menacingly in the low light, the room filled with a thickening tension, leaving one gripping question hanging heavy in the air. Would she choose to stand her ground, or would the darkness swallow her whole? The figure moved, revealing a face that twisted familiarity into something grotesque. Her brother Liam, his features warped, smiled, and it was the innocent smile she remembered. This was a predatory grin, the kind that made Claire want to recoil, the kind that heralded danger. "Come on, Claire. We just want to play," he cooed, his voice dripping with malice. The shadows seemed to pulse around him, a dark halo that amplified her dread. She could hear the children's laughter merging into a single haunting melody, their eager footsteps closing in, surrounding her like a tightening noose. "No, Liam. Stay back." She brandished the knife, searching for any glimmer of the boy she once loved beneath the tainted surface. But there was nothing, just the monster in his place. He stepped closer, more shadows gathering behind him. "You hurt them, Claire. You hurt their feelings." The children giggled in unison, their voices thin and whiny, echoing through the hallway. "Now, they want to make you feel like you made them feel." The words sliced through the air, dripping with the thrill of wicked play. Claire backed away, heart racing. Anger flooded her with each step. "Get away from me. You're not him." The knife trembled, her grip suddenly faltering as doubt crept in. What if he was right? What if they were playing? She had to clear her head, focus. She had to survive. "Playing isn't the same when you're scared," Liam said, his voice hauntingly calm. The shadows behind him undulated, shifting like a living thing, creeping toward her. "You need to feel the fun again with us." She turned, adrenaline igniting her movements as she dashed past him, but the children were there, their eyes glinting with glee. She swung the knife at the nearest figure, but they were faster, slipping away like smoke. They laughed, oh how they laughed, as if hunting her was the best game they had ever played. "Claire." Liam's voice sliced through her panic. "Don't you want to remember how much fun we had? Remember how we used to play in the yard?" The shadows lengthened, swallowing any sense of security she clung to. "You could just let go in that moment." Claire stumbled into a room. The door slammed shut behind her as she turned to face the suffocating darkness within. The walls seemed to close in, the familiar shape of a once cozy playroom now morphed into a prison. The toys lay scattered, forgotten remnants of childish laughter. "Let us play a different game," a child's voice whispered from the darkness, shaky and sweet, yet utterly feral. "Hide and seek." Her breath quickened as she backed against the wall, looking for a way out. Where? Where could she run? The shadows shifted, moving together like a seething mass, closing in, whispering her name. "Ready or not, here we come," the voices chimed, growing louder, striking fear into her heart. Claire's mind raced. This game was deadly, and she was losing. She could not succumb to their madness. She had to find a way to escape, to outsmart them. But as she frantically searched for a plan, a glimmer caught her eye, a doorway, half open and inviting, beckoning her into the unknown. The whispers grew excited, a monstrous chorus eager for the chase. "Never play with shadows, Claire," she whispered to herself, feeling cold sweat trickle down her back. "Never play where the light can't reach." With a quick breath, she darted toward the door, steeling herself for whatever lay on the other side. Yet, as she pushed forward, a chilling realization struck her. She didn't know if the door would lead her to salvation or deeper into the abyss. And as she hesitated, she could feel the darkness closing in, hungry and relentless. Face pressed against the door, would she take the leap into the unknown? Or could she confront the terror that waited on the other side? Claire crashed through the door, heart hammering, gasping in the cold air that swallowed her whole. It felt less like liberation and more like diving into a frigid sea. She stumbled forward and caught herself against the jagged edge of a wooden table, the pain jolting her back to focus. The room was dark but filled with strange shapes. Shelves lined the walls, but instead of books, they were stocked with masks, twisted faces that grinned and scowled as if they'd come to life. The dim light flickered overhead, casting ominous shadows that danced like specters around her. "This is just another game," she breathed, her voice trembling. "I can't let them win." With one hand still gripping the knife, she pulled the other back, wiping sweat from her brow. She had to keep moving, had to find a way out. They were coming, she could feel it. Their laughter echoed through the wall, a taunting remnant of glee. Claire scanned the room, a twisted playground of nightmares. Shadows darted at the edge of her vision. The grotesque masks seemed to turn toward her, their stares piercing, alive with malice. She marched toward a narrow exit at the far end, but dread shackled her feet. She had no idea what lay behind that door, and the instincts telling her to run clashed with the foresight to be cautious. "Count to 10, Claire!" Liam's voice sing-songed from behind the door. She had just fled. "We'll find you. We'll always find you." Fear wrapped tighter around her heart. If they could count, they must have a plan, a sinister strategy she couldn't predict. Panic surged within her. She couldn't let them take control. Desperation clawing in her throat, Claire rushed to the exit. She gripped the knob and twisted it, swinging the door wide open. The hallway was dimly lit, revealing the endless stretch ahead, each shadow a potential threat. But she could see it now, a staircase leading up, away from the oppressive laughter echoing below. With resolve, she sprinted up the stairs, two at a time. She heard whispers, soft and relentless, creeping behind her, urging her to look back. But she couldn't. Those cries felt dangerously close, and she knew that curiosity would cost her dearly. The door at the top of the stairs was half open, a sliver of hope. Claire thrust it open, tumbling into a bedroom decorated with faded wallpaper and a single window. An old rocking chair swayed by itself, creaking like it was confirming her fears. Just as she turned to close the door behind her, something caught her eye, a reflection in the dusty, cracked mirror. A figure behind her, just a flash, a girl with wild, dark hair and sunken eyes. Claire whirled around, but the room was empty. Just shadows and silence. Was it the darkness playing tricks on her? Could they capture her in moments of despair like this? Then, that tortured voice emerged again, echoing from behind the mirror. "Claire, they're coming! If you don't play, they'll never stop." Chilled to the bone, Claire recoiled, staring at the affectionate reflection in the glass. It was wrong, empty, yet full of despair. They wanted her to be afraid, wanted her to feel hopeless. That was the only way they could play their twisted game. Panic surged once more. That reflection broke and shattered her thoughts, and now fear clouded them. She had to keep moving, had to keep ahead of whatever waited for her in the darkness. If she was still being hunted, then she could turn the tables. "Where?" Claire whispered fiercely, determination igniting her nerves. "Where do I go?" But before she could bolt toward the window, the shadows thickened in the corners, shifting and swirling with an almost sentient glee. They were closing in, hungry for her fear, and just behind them, she swore she saw the faces of the children lining up, grinning wide. "Let us play a new game, shall we?" Claire's mind raced as she felt the cold weight of despair once more. Would this be the moment it all ended? As the darkness deepened, a question loomed overhead, piercing through her thoughts like a ray of light. Would she become one of them, or find a way to break free? The room felt smaller, the walls closing in as Claire sensed the shadows weaving tighter around her. Each breath was a struggle, a battle against the icy grip of dread that threatened to suffocate her. The laughter grew louder, ringing in her ears, mocking her retreat. They were toying with her. Claire had to act now. She turned towards the window, the only escape from this suffocating nightmare. The glass held her gaze, reflecting only the gloom of the outside world, but behind her, the whispers grew into a sudden crescendo, a chant that filled the room with dread. "Join us, play with us," she recoiled, heart racing. Each pulse was a drumbeat of urgency, urging her to leap through the window, to risk the fall rather than face the sinister children that lurked so close. But just as she took a step forward, the rocking chair creaked louder, grounding her in the room like a heavy anchor. "Remember the games, Claire?" came the silken tone again, slithering through the air. "You can't escape us. Not now, not ever." The window was a promise of freedom, but it felt like an illusion. Claire turned back to the mirror, desperate for answers. Maybe the figure had something to say, and maybe that voice could offer a clue, a hint of how to slip past the grasping hands of the children. "Tell me what I need to do," she pleaded. "Help me." But the reflection twisted, morphing into a grimace. The girl's lips curled downwards, shaking her head defiantly. "It's too late for help, the game has begun." A cold chill swept over Claire as she understood. This was the start of something darker. The haunting echoes of the past filled her mind, lost days filled with laughter and innocence were now tainted by fear. The laugh she once knew felt like a weapon, a tool in their relentless hunt. She hesitated, casting a glance back at the door. Would they come for her now, ready for blood? If they had the power to bend reality inside this room, what would be outside it? What if the hallway was a trap, filled with even more horrors? Claire clenched the knife tighter. "No," she whispered fiercely to herself. "I won't let them win. I refuse to be a pawn in their game." With newfound determination, she turned and charged for the window, praying that the leap would be worth the risk. As she reached the glass, a sudden force pushed against her back, like icy fingers trying to drag her away. "Claire," the voice sang, creeping into her thoughts. "You can't escape your fate." She slammed her palm against the window, panic surging. It wouldn't budge. The glass was solid, unyielding, laughing along with the children. Struggling, she slammed her shoulder against the frame, suddenly aware that time was slipping. "Don't look back. Just don't look," she yelled at herself, even as the shadows whispered maliciously behind her. Finally, with one last thrust, the window gave way, shattering the glass and flooding the room with sharp sunlight. Claire didn't hesitate for a moment. She sprang forward, launching herself through the broken pane, hoping that freedom awaited her on the other side. As she hit the ground outside, sharp pain ripped through her leg. She cried out, but the laughter of the children faded behind her, replaced by the sound of silence. Lying on the grass, Claire glanced back at the house, where the shadows stood watching from the window, grinning as if the game was far from over. They didn't play fair, and they would never let her escape this nightmare. Breathing heavily, she pushed herself up, wincing at the pain radiating from her leg. But there was no time for weakness. She knew they could pursue her, knew they would find her eventually. As she made her shaky way back to her feet, a chilling cold filled her bones from within. "Now, we start again," the haunting voice echoed from the depths of her mind, a reminder that this was far from over. But her eyes widened as she caught sight of the path leading into the woods beyond her, dark, twisted, and beckoning her in. Would it be a way to end this torment, or the beginning of her final game? Her heart raced again, not knowing what to believe. Would those trees offer protection, or would they become another trap? With the children's laughter lingering in the air, Claire hesitated on the threshold of the woods, knowing she had to choose: would running deeper into the darkness save her, or lead her into the heart of her fears? Claire stood at the edge of the woods, breathless and trembling. Shadows stretched longer than before, curling around tree trunks like dark tendrils reaching for her. "It's now or never," she whispered to herself, summoning every ounce of courage. With a wild, racing heart, she plunged forward into the woods, each step heavier than the last. Branches clawed at her skin, bruising the exposed parts of her arms and legs. The whispers of the children filled her mind again, teasing her, echoing through the trees. "Come play, Claire. We're waiting." They acted like a malignant chorus, weaving through the rustling leaves. But as she ran deeper, the weight of their laughter began to feel distant. Focused on the path ahead, she charged through the underbrush, desperate for a way to break the grip of the sinister playtime she found herself trapped in. Minutes felt like hours, her lungs burned, and still she pressed on, refusing to let the shadows consume her. Then she stumbled upon an open clearing bathed in soft, muted light, shafts of sunlight breaking through the thick canopy overhead. It felt almost peaceful, but she knew better. The soft laughter faded, replaced by an eerie silence, a prelude to the hunt. She had to find a way to turn the tables before the tables were turned on her. In the center of the clearing lay an old swing set, rusty chains creaking as they swayed gently in the breeze. Heart racing, Claire knew she had to use it somehow. She threw herself onto one of the swings, gripping the chains tightly, and quickly kicked forward, then backward, building momentum. Where did she go? The voices erupted from the trees, panic creeping into their playfulness. "She is hiding." Claire took a breath, eyes darting, scanning the edge of the woods. The children's laughter was closer now. It was time to act. She soared higher on the swing, feeling the cold wind rush past her face. With one powerful push, she launched herself off the swing, soaring through the air toward a nearby tree. She landed hard but managed to tuck and roll, her body absorbing the impact as she scrambled to her feet. Heart racing, she didn't look back. She began weaving between trees, pushing branches aside, desperately running toward the sound of rushing water she could faintly hear in the distance. The children's voice followed closely behind her, louder and more frantic. "Run and play, Claire. We want to be friends." Their words twisted to sound both inviting and gruesome, chipping away at the last dregs of her courage. She couldn't let them catch her. Reaching a riverbank, Claire skidded to a stop, the shimmering water reflecting the sunlight like a mirror, bright and dangerous. Perhaps it was her way out. She needed to act fast. Without hesitating, she plunged into the water, the cold wrapping around her like a thief stealing her breath. It was deeper than she anticipated, the current swirling around her limbs as she fought to keep her head above water. The laughter from the woods faded slightly, but she couldn't let hope blind her. She had to cross. Each stroke was a battle. She gasped until finally, she found solid ground on the opposite bank after what felt like an eternity. Shivering but alive, Claire crawled onto the muddy ground, looking back at the river. The whispers echoed across the water, desperate, growing more frustrated with each passing moment. "Claire, Claire! You can't get away." But she had to keep moving. The terrain was rough and swampy, branches snapped underfoot, but that only fueled her determination to escape. The dark woods loomed behind her, whispering secrets and taunts, but she pressed forward. Claire finally spotted a break in the trees up ahead, a glimpse of the road leading back to Maplewood. The promise of safety lay just beyond those woods. But would they follow her? She couldn't take the chances. She was all out of time. Bursting through the brush, she sprinted onto the road, gasping for breath. Cars rushed past, oblivious to the terror still nestled within the shadows. As she reached a sign welcoming her back, she felt the weight of dread start to lift. Perhaps the danger was behind her, but then she saw it. Standing just beyond the tree line, a cluster of familiar figures watched the children, still smiling, still waiting. They hadn't given up. "We're always here, Claire," a child called out, voice echoing with malevolence. Adrenaline surged through her veins again as she ran for her life. The townsfolk had to know. She needed to warn them. Stumbling into town, Claire burst through the doors of the local diner, her arrival sending heads turning, shock rippling through the patrons. "Help! It's not over. They're coming!" she cried, desperation spilling from her lips, faces turned pallid, whispers intertwined with disbelief. But before she could explain to warn, the lights flickered ominously. The laughter echoed through the diner, filling the air with an unsettling chill. "Join us, we'll always find you, Claire." The children's voices sang, thicker now, alive with malicious glee. And then, suddenly, with a bone-chilling realization, Claire understood. The children weren't tied to the house or the woods. They were here, too, in the hearts of the people she trusted, in every shadow that danced at dusk. The game was never-ending. The hunt was just beginning. As the diner erupted into chaos, fear gripped her soul tighter than ever. Claire understood now that the innocence of childhood had always masked the darkness that lay beneath. And she had narrowly escaped in this time, but could she elude it forever? The question clawed at her mind, leaving the distinct echo of laughter trailing behind. Would she ever truly be free? "Let us play," the shadows whispered in unison, and in that terrifying moment, beneath the frail bones of hope, the game returned, a haunting reminder of what she could never escape. Echoes of laughter intertwined with the thatched mystery of Maplewood, wrapping around Claire as she realized the chase would never truly end. She had become part of their story. But as the doors opened, and the townspeople rushed out, terrified and wide-eyed, could the power of unity challenge the sinister play of fear? Would they band together to confront the darkness, or would her nightmare consume them all? This was only the beginning.